sound better somewhere else.
There we go. That's better.
Does it sound better now?
Yeah, it sounded where you were, just however it was placed, it sounded like something might have been on top of it.
Okay. All right, so let me just...
Am I getting it or am I okay? Because we have internet issues here on Kauai as well.
All right, so we're not sure where it is that the internet issue could be just global at this point also.
Okay.
So let's see if I'm a little bit closer to the router. How's that?
Great. Perfect.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm gonna get going. It's 4 p.m. And whoever joins this call during this conference, I want you to understand that all of this can be found at galacticshamanastrologers.net. And galacticshamanastrologers.net is my website where all of the blogs have been written for the entire year, so that if you're not following this conversation, you can go back and read those blogs. So what I want everyone to start with is just to feel right now. Take a deep breath and feel what we have in the sky right now. Feel your body. Good, and I'm gonna start to talk, but you can keep on feeling. So in the sky right now, Mars, which is a planet of action, is conjunct Pluto, and Pluto is the depth of the underworld. It is about dying to old structures and being reborn. When Mars and Pluto come together, it is like an explosion of energy. And depending on Mars's condition, that is like how much power the punch and the explosion will have. Mars is sitting between Jupiter, which is like amplification of a massive gas planet. And then Mars is like a very vigorous, almost aggressive energy with Pluto, the god of the underworld, who will help us die to old structures and rebirth. So when you have Jupiter, the gas planet, like pushing Mars energetically, it is expansive, explosive energy. So if you're feeling that kind of like super high vibration, almost like you can't calm down, it feels like something is imminent, it's massively explosive, that's exactly how you're supposed to feel. And so to try to avoid that and say that's not happening and everything's fine and we can all just be calm now, is to negate the planetary action that's in the sky right now. So what I tend to do is when we have these players playing, I feel and let my body explore what that's like, because then as an astrologer, when I have somebody who has a natal chart with that, which anyone who's born today is going to be born with this massive explosive energy, and they will feel like this every day for the rest of their life. So imagine that. Now, what we have having developed over the last year was a stellium of planets drawing together at the same point. So that in January, we had Saturn and Pluto, Ceres, the goddess of fertility and agriculture, the Sun, Mercury, and Chariklo, who is one of the Centaur planets. The willingness to shapeshift to best serve love, all of those planets came together at this same exact degree. And what I've said in my blog again and again is that we can expect that all of the old structures will end. So it's kind of like when Rome fell, we had a similar conjunction in the sky at that time. So we can expect that all of the old structures, and let's talk about what a structure is, will be falling at this time. So the structures are religious structures, educational structures, medical structures, governmental structures, finance structures, art and theater structures. All of the old structures of the previous civilization are expected to fall. In addition to that, Saturn is a very limiting energy, and Saturn said there will be a limit on the power structures that currently exist, and that limit has been reached. And just today, Saturn moved into Aquarius, showing us where we need to go now as Mars and Pluto are coming together with this massive explosion. So Aquarius, if you read my blog about the age of Aquarius, is your personal sovereign creative expression that is not dependent upon any of those structures. It is the pure potential light from within you. So if you think about Aquarius, it is the water bearer, but really what it's sending down is photonic light. And I wrote a blog about how we would have to empty our cup in order to be filled with that beautiful photonic light. So what we are doing on this planet right now is we are emptying our cup of every single one of those structures. So as they're falling, I celebrate. I go, oh my gosh, it couldn't be more perfect. That's closed, that's closed, that's closed, that's over. And I see it as like, this divine plan could not have played out in a more beautiful way. Now, the asteroids that are playing right now tell more of a story. And if you're not following this right now, go to my YouTube, Lalita Karoli, Karoli, and the Galactic Shaman Astrologers have over a year worth of conversation about what all of this change is. In the last conversation we talked about, is it fated or do we have free will? Are the asteroids these higher octave of the archetypes that are playing out? And are we fated by them, or is there some free will in that? And what we said as a group was that we realized that those asteroids, making them conscious, understanding what they are, gives you a potential to prepare and to be ready and to understand on a conscious level what's playing out. It does not necessarily mean that's a fated scenario, but that these energies are in the sky right now. So one of the Galactic Shaman Astrologers realized that Wuhan 3206 is traveling between Jupiter and Pluto. And basically, since December of last year, we already knew the economy would fall. We knew the market would crash. I had warned all of my colleagues to be ready for that, to not travel after March 1st, that international travel would be absolutely finished by March 15th. So I basically told everyone that in advance. But then Holly came up with the fact that Wuhan was going to be the archetype that played it out. Now, was the market going to crash one way or another? Yes. Were the structures going to fall one way or another? Yes. So we all knew that. But now Wuhan is playing out as the archetype. What's interesting about that is there are probably 100 other asteroids also sitting between Jupiter and Pluto right now. It's just that humanity chose and needed the Wuhan archetype over all of those others. So let's look at Wuhan. So I wrote some very disturbing blogs, and I tend to be kind of the shadow priestess. So you can read those very disturbing blogs and you can be completely offended by them. And I will be fine with that. But basically what I received was that Wuhan was a place that was holding an energetic possibility that from the animal species would jump a virus that would affect humankind to end our gluttony. Jupiter, where it is in Capricorn, is the end of gluttony. So Jupiter is in a fall, meaning that it cannot bring about the optimistic good luck possibilities of Jupiter. So when Jupiter and Wuhan started to come together, they played out in such a way that the end of gluttony would be seen as the archetypal end of gluttony of what was going on in Wuhan, China. And not to criticize anyone, I'm as guilty as everyone. I have committed all that could possibly be offensive. I have eaten meat, I have harvested animals, the whole thing. But basically what played out was that from the dog population jumped a virus into the human population, which was both a curse and a blessing, because Jupiter gives boons and gives curses. So Jupiter in a fall is providing curse energy. And if you don't believe in boons and curses, that's fine. Anyways, I'm an archetypal astrologer. So from the shamanic perspective, all things are equal. Boons, blessings, curses, evil. To me, it's all the same because it's all the game that we are playing here in creation. So Wuhan is archetypally playing right now exactly conjunct Mars and approaching Pluto to destroy all the structures. So whether it's a real health concern or not is actually going to be whether you are stuck in the old structures. The health concern comes from, are you still extremely attached to the stock market? So my clients who have had the coronavirus, who were dependent upon the stock market, had it for 2 full weeks and are still very sick. My clients and my neighbors who are not attached to those old structures or the stock market crashing, they were over it like that, okay? My neighbor who had the virus had a public health professional come out to verify that she had it, and yet they did not give her the test because there are so few test kits. But because she saw it shamanically and she knew that this was moving through her, she let the whole feeling of this virus move through her. Now, what I've described is that in the blog, it has a lot of mental and emotional conditions to it that mirror Procyon, the fixed star in the sky that's making an opposition right now. So Earth is in the middle. Procyon is the fixed star of the little dog. And opposite that is Wuhan, Mars, and Jupiter, and Earth is right in the center. So what we would say is that Procyon's energy is either a boon or a curse, also from the little dog. So what I'm also seeing is that if you have the mental or emotional states that go along with the rabies virus, which I explain very clearly in my blog what those mental and emotional states are, then you tend to have this virus more violently than people who don't have those mental and emotional states. So it starts in the mental and emotional world. When it passed through me, the experience that I had was a headache for 5 days. My lungs felt like they were panicking. Every cell in my lungs were vibrating fear, panic, and exhausted anxiety. I didn't take anything for it. I did not use any pain relievers. And I let my body feel energetically exactly what this is. I invited it into my consciousness. So when something's playing out in the sky, it is always benevolent. In my opinion, if you go with what is allowed in the sky right now, it will be the most benevolent outcome. If you fight and you say that's not true, and the dark forces are after us, and this is all an economic collapse to capture humankind, well, then that will be your experience. Then that will be your outcome of what this virus is. But for me, the outcome of this is it actually strips all those entities around you that were paranoid and fearful, okay? Because what I see of humankind on a whole right now, and the fact that Pluto will continue to make an opposition to Procyon, the little dog star, the entire year, is that humankind will go through its deepest fear. It will go through its shadow, and it will come out the other side fearless and fully sovereign. But again, it's like we have to agree that this is a benevolent change in our consciousness and not be afraid that all of the structures are falling. And not be afraid that all.
Amazing.
Wow, that just repeated like 5 times. Repeated 5 times.
Do you want me to, maybe I can stop my video if you're freezing up over there?
Say it again, Gloriana.
I can stop my video possibly if you're free. Are you freezing up over there, the computer?
You are freezing occasionally, and I just heard my voice repeat several times.
There we go. That's probably better like that.
Okay, so then that'll just give us a little bit more. Yeah, okay. So did you want to say anything, Gloriana?
No, I'm good. I'm very interested.
Okay. So in terms of how long this will last, people are also asking me, how long is this going to last? So what I see coming up for humanity is that we will have a Venus retrograde in May and June, and that will be in Gemini. And during that time, I have discussed with some of the seers and very good high-level astrologers that potentially the internet and the grid will go down. Is that horrifying? No, absolutely. That is a necessary reset that will also happen. And Venus and her archetypal energy in Gemini is to let go of the communication and all of those type of structures that no longer serve us either. The next thing that will happen after that, by August, Mars will enter Aries. Mars is conjunct Pluto right now, so we're going to watch what Mars does. Mars will enter its own sign, Aries, of the warrior. The god Aries is the god of war. And humanity will at that time decide, again, whether it wants to take up the weapons and become warrior. Mars will square the Jupiter, Wuhan, Pluto, and very interesting, Wuhan is retrograding and moving forward between Jupiter and Pluto this year. So Mars will square it, exactly conjunct Black Moon Lilith, of a deep look into the feminine void. Mars, the warrior, looks into the feminine void and says, okay, do we want to extinct ourselves at this point, or are we going to rise up to be noble, courageous, strong humans that Mars is the capacity to use your willpower for good also. So we'll make a decision then. It's not a prediction, it's an energy I'm reading, and that will come in on August 9th. Then Mars, the warrior, will retrograde in his own sign of Aries. It'll retrograde and be retrograde exactly conjunct Eris, the goddess of discord and strife, square, meaning a crisis, to Jupiter, Wuhan, and Pluto on October 9th. That's the retrograde. Then Mars will move forward again. So 3 times Mars, the warrior, in its own sign of Aries, in its full power of potential violence or potential courage, is going to square the Jupiter, Wuhan, and Pluto. Now, each of us needs to do our own work right now, because we each have to make a decision. Some of my clients who are just starting to realize the structures are over are saying to me, doesn't matter, I have guns and ammunition. Now, these are the same people who have been pretending to be the light. They've pretended and been like the quantum healing hypnosis people and the breathwork people and the artist people, pretending to be the light. And when I get down to the bottom line of these structures are over, their response is, well, I have guns, I have handguns. That shadow this year. Every single one of
Lalita,
us.
you froze
what will
up.
your choice be? Which
You
part
froze.
did I need to say again?
You froze up at I have handguns.
Okay, so my client, in her full recognition that the structures were over, her immediate response was her shadow came up and she said, I have handguns, I have ammunition. So then I had to ask her, what are you going to do with those handguns and ammunition? So the shadow will rise up. The fear entities that are attached to people will rise up. Everyone needs to look at it right now. Are you making a potential of source energy that humankind can be?
Can you repeat that, Lalita?
Yeah. So each of us are making a decision right now. Are you going to be in the Aquarian beauty of the new structures of creative intelligence? Is no longer attached to any of those dependency matrices? Or are you going to live in the shadow? And there are long, long lines at the gun stores right now. So we as humanity, which is all one being, will be making those decisions all year long. Because Wuhan, the archetypal energy, is sitting between Jupiter and Pluto. Mars is applying right now for massive explosive energy of this potential. And then Mars will be squaring this same point for several months this year. When the banks are closed, when the government is closed, when the schools are closed, when nobody shows up to a religious event and no one arrives at the Hollywood is shut down, and all of those structures that were part of society for 2,000 years are shut down. What comes up in you as beauty that you can offer humankind? What creative intelligence are you going to allow to come forth? Because none of those structures will happen again. People are putting things in the chat room, which is fine. So this year will test all of us. It depends on where it is in your chart personally about how you will be tested. I know Gloriana's chart quite well. She is in almost like fabulous paranormal shamanic level strength. She's got like major Wa coming through her right now. She feels probably like superhuman because all of this is applying to her natal sun of like why she was born. What she's doing on earth is coming forward right now. But for some people, it might be in a very different position and you might feel quite compromised and not sure how to do this. And that's fine too. I would say that fear is not, and this is a quote by Jeff Foster, by the way, fear is not the opposite of love. Fear is a wave in the ocean that we will ride, and we don't have to be against that fear. We just ride that fear. There are things that humans are afraid of. And that's a natural state. And I would say just ride that wave. and see what's in the shadow there. What are the attachments that you have that you are trying desperately to hold on to? And just assume, I must say, you know, I've been saying this for 20 years, but just assume that none of the structures that currently exist will be here by the end of the year. The school, I do say the schools will not reopen. I do say the entire government is going to crash. I do say that money will not exist. I do say that all of Hollywood, I mean, Disney World is shut down, thank the gods. I mean, this should have all happened 10 years ago, as far as I'm concerned. So for me, I'm going, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. It's finally happening. And in that way, I move forward with my creative intelligence. Every day I get up and go, oh, wow, look at this. I'm free. I'm liberated. I can do anything that I want to do. I can make my own clothes, which I'm currently wearing an outfit that I made. What is it that you've always wanted to do? And do it. What do you really enjoy from the depth of your soul, outside of all of those dependency structures that no longer can exist? Maybe you want to do artwork. Maybe you want to plant a garden. Maybe you want to make tinctures. It's all available now. I think what I'll do is ask or have people ask me questions, because for me, it's very, very clear, but I'm not sure that it's clear to everyone in the group. So why don't you conduct who's going to ask the question, Gloriana?
Great. I'm going to start with the first question, and it's more of a repeat. Can you just repeat? You cut out at one moment. What is it? Just super clear for everybody. What is it that we should be doing at the moment? You said you were talking about feeling into it.
Yeah, it's because Pluto is the god of death. How does that word death make you feel?
Okay.
I'm
going to type this out.
How does that word death make you feel? Because Pluto offers a rebirth only if you're willing to go through the terror of the underworld, which is the loss of everything that you ever were attached to. How does that make you feel? And then from there, how is it making you feel that you will possibly never be able to pay for anything with money again? And I know, there's tons of Neptune and Pisces baloney out there about funds from whatever is coming. Forget that. First, address the shadow. How does it make you feel that all of these structures are, you will never go to Disney World again? And feel into that in your body, because where the virus attaches to is it will attach to anywhere you are fearful and still holding on to those old structures. Okay, Gloriana, is that getting clearer?
Mm-hmm. And then you also mentioned feeling into the love.
So feel into what is your most desired, because on the other side of your fear is what you most desire. What is your most desired creativity that you would love to bring forth? What is it that your soul has always wanted to do? Maybe it's something simple like get up and take a walk and hear the birds, because now you're free to do that, aren't you?
Sure. All right, so does anybody else have questions? Everybody is currently muted, so how shall we do this? I'm going to go down the list.
There's 4 comments in the chat room, but maybe those are from you.
Yeah, so you can feel free to go in the chat box in the comments and type your question in. Andrew, did you have a question?
Yeah.
Hold on one second, Andrew. This is my little button moved away from me to unmute you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, what's going on with Chiron? Let's talk about Chiron and Aries. I'm really curious about what's going on there. Oh, so I'm still muted. I can talk.
Lalita.
That's it. Yeah, I don't have more. Thank you. You can unmute me.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Go for it, Lalita.
Okay, that's fabulous. So Chiron is receiving an application from the sun right now. Chiron is a centaur, so astrologically it is one of the 22 centaurs that have the long elliptical orbits. Chiron is the match to Chariklo, and Chariklo is still traveling with Pluto, so the ability to shapeshift to best serve love by a death process and a rebirth. Now, Chiron's story in Aries is he questions, do I even have the right to exist? Because Aries is the first sign of I am, and I have the right to be here. So Black Moon Lilith just crossed Chiron, and basically the question became very strongly like, do we even have the right to exist? And Black Moon Lilith is the void of utter nothingness. So all of us had this question of, are we going to be like back out into the abyss of nothingness? And now Chiron is sitting between the sun and Black Moon Lilith. Chiron is what's called enclosed. The sun is going to shine its full illumination on that question. Do I have the right to exist? And Chiron's ultimate wound is he is a centaur and he was the product of a rape, okay? So the other thing that humanity is very much grappling with right now is the bottom line feeling of I am disgusting. Because at the bottom, at the base of the shadow, is that everybody has been the product of a rape. There's no one on the planet through many, many lifetimes that has not been the product of a rape. And Chiron's story was that Saturn, who happens to be conjoining his love, Chariklo, right now, is being forgiven for that original rape because Saturn came down, the story is, and this is in the book of Enoch, actually. Saturn came down as an interdimensional being, and the Lemurian beings that were sea creatures were all here. And Saturn, as an archetype, came down and raped the sea nymphs, which was the fall of Lemuria. So Chiron's original thing is I am so repulsive and disgusting, and I'm an outcast, and I don't have the right to exist. Each of us will face that depth of that shadow because Black Moon Lilith is sitting on one side of, let's just get out of here and go back to the void. I don't even want to exist. And then the sun illuminating that original wound. And that is why in the collective right now, we see so many people calling for the arrests of the pedophiles and the rapists and the everything out there. That's truly because each and every one of us has been a product of incest or rape. Every one of us has that baseline rage and has that baseline feeling of I'm absolutely disgusting and I'm going to hide in a cave like Chiron and I don't even have the right to exist. Now, how Chiron progresses through his life is that he realizes through his time in the cave, which interestingly, we're all spending our archetypal time in the cave right now because we're all in quarantine. He spends his time in the cave and he realizes, actually, by listening to the birds and learning from nature and studying the stars and just being in a state of pure awareness and quiet meditation, that he does have the right to exist. And then he comes out of the cave and starts to teach from his wisdom and his creative intelligence the beautiful things that his body is endowed with. The story of Chiron is the wound is the way. Go through that wound of feeling like a disgusting outcast. Go right into that shadow, that deep terror that you are not wanted by anybody. Go right into that and then come out the other side and be the great teacher that Chiron is. So Chiron as an archetypal story is going to play out very strongly this year because Mars will also cross over Chiron before it squares the Jupiter, Wuhan, Pluto. And again, we will be asked, is it okay that you are at the core possibly the product of incest or rape? And if you've never looked into that, just do your ancestry.com, because I did mine recently, and you won't believe how many relatives you have that are possibly part of too close of a family line. And I have done this with so many of my clients that I did it myself. And I was amazed to find how many half brothers my father has and a half sister that my mother has that none of us knew about, because that is deep in the family line. We have all had that kind of stuff go on in our family. So if Chiron is playing out in your chart right now, look at about 4 and 5 degrees Aries. And if it is conjunct something significant, your gift to the consciousness of this might be, if I am the product of the rape, if I truly feel disgusting at my base and my core, is it still okay for me to exist? And then you have to get into that, like, am I disgusting or am I pristine? Is it okay? And I did that in my shamanic work. It's okay. It's okay. We've all been everything. Okay, other questions?
Yeah, we have Amira has her hand up. So, Amira, do you have a question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for this, Lalita. You are like speaking to everything that I believe in my core to be true. And Gloriana and I have had multiple conversations around all of these topics. And like, you know, I really get that there's two camps right now. Either you are on like team, let it fall, rejoice, rebuild it, and in the creative destruction, or you're on the team of fear. And, you know, as far as like your comment on Disney World, we live in Disney World. Gloriana and I do. And there's going to be a lot of really interesting and challenging times ahead. But this is why we came here. Like, this is why the baddest of the bad, all of us came here to help revolutionize and recreate a new earth. So I'm excited for everything that's coming. And I guess if I just have one question for you, it's what do you think about domestic travel in the United States opening back up again? And I'm asking because obviously I have family on the mainland, I have children there that I hope to see again. So what are your thoughts on like that reopening in time and us being able to travel across the big blue pond again?
Mm-hmm. First, what I want everyone to do in order for that travel to open up, I think it's imperative to first look into the shadow and let go of our attachments. So let me just play it out for what everyone can do. My daughter lives in Colorado. I saw this coming months ago. And we had to let go of visiting because she needed to fly into New York to get here. And at that time, the riots had already begun in New York, and things were shutting down in such a way that travel was not safe. So one of the stages that we all have to go through, I know this is the long answer, Amira, but we first have to let go of the possibility of travel anytime soon. And in that letting go, we free up the attachments to those things. Because what I see on the other side of this is going to sound unbelievable, but what I see on the other side of this, now it's going to get really weird, is that all of our original divine blueprints are going to come online. And this is going to sound way out there, but once the grid goes down and there's no energetic problems with our natural telepathy, I think our natural telepathy is going to come online. So let go of the internet, let go of the grid, because I actually think that it's a frequency that is blocking the Uranus and Taurus transit right now that is supposed to bring our telepathy online. Now, if we let go, and again, this is going to sound crazy, if we let go of that kind of flight in airplanes, then I believe that along with telepathy, the ability to locate your body to a different location called teleportation is going to come online. Should we be attached to that? No, but right now, if there are cars and there are planes and there are trains and there are all that old frequency structure that we are attached to, then that ability to bilocate and even teleport, which we already have actually the technology for, is just inhibiting us from actually using our divine blueprints. Now, in terms of astrology, if we can keep letting go of all of these things, we have a very good transit at the end of the year on December 20th of 2020. On December 20th of 2020, Saturn and Jupiter will be at 0 degrees Aquarius. Now, if you can really understand Aquarius, the Aquarian abilities are already our divine blueprint. If we can keep letting go of all of these structures and we get to that, what's called the kingmaker, which is Jupiter and Saturn. Saturn is the domicile lord ruler of Aquarius. Then we will have all our sovereign abilities back online. By then, I would say that if we have all done enough shadow work and let go of all of these structures, it's possible that beyond our wildest dreams of transport will start to open up and come online again. And Gloriana, you can test me at any time with your tuning forks to see if I'm absolutely full of shit. But what I really see is that this is the process of letting go of all those old structures, because we are inhibited by those old structures from our full functionality. Any technology that we all know there's teleportation. Any technology that currently exists is actually our own technology. And once you let all of that go, we will actually have those technologies again. So I would say that if we can let go all the shadow, there should be full transport by December 20th. But it's truly, I think, potentially going to take that long.
I will chime in here and say that everything that you're saying, including teleportation and even psychically talking to people across an ocean, is what I have been feeling into. It's, we are, and I just had a client this morning where I said, like, you just let go. There's no rule. The words I said to her were, there's no more rule book. We're not following by rules. We're following our inner truth. So go with what feels. So I think we're going to have to start just feeling into it, because it's a new world coming. It's like a new energy, I just feel all this newness coming in that I've never really navigated through before. And it's a lot of fun and it's wonderful. But yeah, you got to let go of the fear. You can't travel into that. That's what's been coming up for me. I hope that makes sense. Ellen has a question here. How do you help those who will hang on tight to the old, and this will be very, very difficult for them? Well, you can start off by sharing this video, and I'll share it with you, Ellen. You can make them watch this.
Okay, it's 444 now. I would say, let's use the example of my own mother. When my mother hears me say that all of those old structures are over, she really becomes anxious to the point where she can't breathe, and then she starts to like dissociate, and she doesn't want to hear that. And why can you, that sounds so pessimistic, Lalita. Why are you saying that? Why are you saying schools will never open again? And what I have to do is I call it flip the script. And I have to be clear enough in my own consciousness to flip the script, because if there's any fear left in me, my mom is going to feed on that fear. So first, make sure there's no fear left in you about letting all of these old structures go. Make sure you're really an empty vessel that the Aquarian age can pour into. Make sure that you are truly the Holy Grail that is empty yourself. If you are truly empty, then just your pure vibration will flip the script immediately and say, Mom, the Disney World closing down is the best thing that ever happened to Florida, because now Florida's natural habitat can regrow. You know, Mom, and I know, Mom, that all of it was being paved. You've been complaining for years about 4-lane highways and that you can't get to the store. Mom, all of that stuff being over is the best thing that ever happened to your ability to breathe, your ability to get your basic needs met, your ability to take a walk without being afraid of being run over. I mean, on every level, my mom, who is much older and is afraid to let go of those structures, she's only afraid as I am afraid. And if I am truly empty of attachment to those old structures, I can say that, and it's like it's like a razor blade just took out all the fear and erased it and severed it forever for her and for me. So the first thing is to check in with yourself. Is there any part of you that still needs those structures? And if there is, you're probably not the best person to be talking about this right now. Let everyone have their own space. If they're deeply terrified and you're not sure that you can be that clear and concise as I am, because you just don't necessarily have the language for it, just be a witness, because some people are so terrified at this point, they just need to say it, how scared they are.
Beautiful. Does anybody have any questions? Zach, did you unmute yourself? Do you have a question? Okay, I'm gonna mute you then. If anybody has questions, raise your hand or go in the chat box. You're on the computer, it's on the right-hand side. Or if you raise your hand, I can see that and unmute you. All right, Nicola. Hey, girlfriend, how you doing? Hold on, let's see, unmute. I can't unmute you. 1 second. Okay. We
Hello?
can. Okay, hold on. Is that you, Zach?
Yeah, hi, how are you doing? Thank you for your insight here. I was just wondering if there's anything we can do to mentally or physically prepare for this journey. I mean, if there isn't going to be any money in the world, I mean, are there things that we should do to get prepared? I mean, how are you bartering, or I mean, what do you think about that?
My response to that is that we will be in harmony with what Earth was originally intended for. So if you look at Kauai, when I was in Kauai last year, I made the observation that one hurricane would leave Kauai without any food whatsoever within 7 days. And that was also written up in some of the local magazines that I just happened to be there last year when I was in Kauai. I think that it's very important for all of us to get closer to the natural process that Earth intended before money existed. So if I lived in Kauai, I would be doing what I'm doing here in Vermont, which only has a 3-month growing season. And that is I'm growing permaculture gardens and have been for 20 years, because Kauai originally was a perfect paradise of edible everything in which nobody wanted for anything. And that process probably needs to start fairly soon, Zach, but I would say, or whoever, I can't remember who asked this question, but not like Emmeline is on this call and she could speak to this a little bit too, but it's not like out of a fear place. It's out of like, oh my gosh, we get to grow and live in harmony and paradise as Earth intended it. If you're not particularly good at growing something, then I would say that the trades will become important. Barter, trade. I would say farmers, which have been the lowest common denominator on the planet, will soon rise to be the most important players on the planet. Skilled labor, which has been considered not very important, will become incredibly important. Healing techniques that are not the current medical mainstream will become very important. But really, it's like, I mean, the juiciness of what Earth provides is that she is a fertile paradise, and we will all get the chance to experience that again.
Do you think that we should prepare like in any other way, like try to, if there's not going to be any money, like try to maybe get some silver or gold, something to use? I mean, is that going to be, are precious metals going to be used, you know, in the future, or are those also going to be just something that's not really necessary either?
I see, yeah. And, you know, my clients who are in big finance and the big tech companies asked me this question last year when they knew that the market, they themselves knew that the market was being messed with and was ballooning out of control and was soon going to crash. And my response to them is that if you can't eat it, you know, I just don't find all that much value in it. But you know, if there's something important that you can do with gold and silver, that you can actually do with it, that is procreative and genius, then, and you know what to do with it, then you can mold that gold into something and put it in chocolate. I mean, that's, to me, the beauty of Earth before the Babylonian money magic came in was that it was already a perfect paradise. So let's just agree that Earth is the wisest being of like compassionate consciousness that there is, and she will show us the way. I have been posting, and everyone can always look at my personal Facebook page. I've been posting like diapers that aren't disposable, pads that are homemade that you don't have to buy in the store. I've been posting this for months and months because I knew this was not my hobby, that this was an archetype of what we would need to move towards, because Ceres, the goddess of agriculture, was traveling with that Saturn-Pluto conjunction, where the limits of power had been reached in the old style of farming too, which was basically the Monsanto style. So I'm just watching where Ceres is in the sky now too, because she's the goddess of agriculture, and Ceres is the biggest piece of the ancient planet Tiamat, which all the pieces of the asteroid belt are Tiamat. Tiamat cycled between Mars and Jupiter, and right now it's Mars, Wuhan, and Jupiter that are playing out with Pluto's death and destruction. So I say, well, where is Ceres? Ceres is in Aquarius, the age of Aquarius. She wants us to bring about the fertility and the fecundity and the paradise that is that Aquarian age. And for me, that's not a labor. That is like the most exciting thing I can imagine, is to be able to grow food. The commodities, everything that people have asked me about Bitcoin and gold and silver, I wouldn't know what to do with it. I don't think it's going to have that much value unless you can actually make something with it. Okay.
Okay. I will say a couple more questions here, but Josette said, time to slow down and empty your mind to let in those new ideas. And I would say, yeah, I kind of agree with her there. And one of the girls on the call here, Nicola, she and I worked on Ubuntu together back in 2016. So if you look into Ubuntu, maybe you might get some inspiration as to what we can create together going forward in a new way. We're really, it's like a whole new world, like that song in Aladdin. So the question here is, my nephew had a dream that it was light inside and would open the blinds and it was dark outside. How can we help children through this transition?
How old is your nephew?
He's 10, Lalita. He's 10.
Here.
And I've got younger ones as well.
This is Linda. Hi, Linda.
Yes. Hi.
It depends on how old they are, but the teenagers have been raised on Netflix zombie apocalypse. I have a teenager, and basically the media has been prepping them with this whole zombie apocalypse thing, and their cartoons are kind of zombie apocalypse. The short shows are kind of zombie apocalypse. I mean, I was surprised to see it when I was watching with my daughter at one point. What I would say is that, just like we've been having this conversation right now, is let them explore all of their levels of fear, that, the power would go out, that the world would be dark, that nothing would be the same. I have to tell you, seriously, if they think that you're making it nice for them, their anxiety will grow. I would rather that they get to talk about the deepest, most terrifying thing. And then if you are clear enough, you can play that out and show them that even if the whole grid went down 100 years ago, there was no grid. Okay, but they don't know that. They don't know 100 years ago, everyone was riding horses and growing their own food in their yard. The kids don't know that just 100 years ago, people lived off the land and there were no cars, and all of these structures that are here now were not here. And grandma and grandpa and great grandma and great grandpa knew how to do things. They knew how to fix their own plumbing. They didn't need toilet paper because they used the outhouse. And all of these things are like a fascinating new possibility that is coming through. Plus, we don't have to go back to what grandma and grandpa did. We're going to go forward into something really fabulous. And the Ubuntu idea of working together to create whatever we need is a fabulous one. So I've been watching a lot of those videos and posting those type of videos of how would you make a house out of trash, basically, or mud. I've been posting those videos. It's fabulous what's coming forward. What do you think of that, Linda?
Hold on, let me unmute her. Go for it, Linda. Oh,
No, it's very much so. The good thing about my niece and nephews is that they've been to Croatia and saw how our ancestors lived, and even how my parents and grandparents lived without all that stuff that you mentioned. They didn't grow up with toilet paper, so they've seen both sides. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing quickly, if we can't fly anymore, my dream was to go live on the family property in Croatia, and that's where I want to grow veggies and stuff. So have I like missed the fucking boat?
No, nobody's missed the boat. It's just that the mode of transportation might be changing is all, Linda.
Okay, cool.
let's see here. Andrew, did you have a question? You wrote in the comments, 1 second. Andrew, did you have another question?
Yeah, you know, some of the conversations that I've had with multiple people is, you know, being really clear that I'm really not fearful of the death process and learning to make friends with that. And a friend of mine told me about a meditation, a tantric meditation, to imagine your own death so that you release this attachment to your body. And I just thought, oh, wow. Oh, that's a whole other level. And I'm just noticing, this is kind of a side note, but I'm noticing with clients and tuning that there's a new frequency coming up from the planet that's activating parts of our DNA, which is just, you know, it's dovetailing on what you're talking about. But it's a distinctly old, it's like the old frequency. Our DNA remembers it. Mm-hmm. So that's, I know there are maybe two different comment questions there, but those are the things I wanted to say.
That's exactly what's in the sky, though, Andrew. Right now, the resurrection codes are in the sky. And if you read my blogs all the way back to the eclipses from July, I wrote a dissolution meditation because I could see the eclipses were asking us to get ready to dissolve. So those resurrection codes go way, way back to when the mystery schools would induce a coma, a near-death coma for actually 9 days, so that you would release the attachment to your body and all the structures. And those resurrection codes were the original templates of the divine human. So the Isis and Osiris mysteries, the Magdalene and Yeshua mysteries, all of those are the original template that we had, that we would choose to greet death as the mystery school that would help us to initiate a whole new consciousness and keep Gaia's consciousness sovereign without the heavy kind of like material level identification, which is where we are right now. There's a material level identification with like, we can't survive without these materials. So if you initiate those original resurrection codes of how to let go of all that heavy identification, then we come into the ability of the masters, because all the masters faced their death before they became masters. That's part of the process. So yeah, please go more into that information that's coming through you, because that's what's in the stars.
and to dovetail on that a little bit, I have felt, I'm not sure what was going on in the stars last June. Actually, I do. When you wrote the Declaration of Sovereignty, was right around the time where I actually started feeling people's energy fields differently. And we learn biofield tuning in a certain way, how we work with the energy field of the human body. But since, for almost a year now, I have been feeling the shift, and actually how we're starting to be wired differently, how our energy fields are shifting. And that's not just me or be quiet. Like, that's my New York clients, my Hawaii client, and everybody in between on every continent. And so our energy fields are shifting. I do feel that. I do agree. And then Josette wrote, how important is grounding? From my point of view, extremely. But Lalita, I'll let you.
Well, all of the planets are going through Capricorn, which is Earth. So if you're going to follow the star knowledge, Josette, right? This is the quiet, ancient structures of feminine earth that we want to tune into. When I wrote about the Kaliak and the civilization's rise and fall, tether yourself to the earth. Remember that blog? It was about that the Kaliak, the ancient earth, has seen one civilization after the next fall. Tether yourself, root deep into the earth, become quiet and listen to her. And I spend most of my day like that. I live here in Vermont, where the quiet sounds of the earth and touching her and breathing her in and looking at her animals who are completely unconcerned about this transition. That's where I tether myself.
The rest of her question was how important is grounding versus going up there spiritually, some want to experience.
I would say this is about full embodiment, because if you can be that vessel that is open, it is about bringing all of that divinity that you are down into this vessel. There's no part of me that wants to go up. There's no part of me that wants to escape. There's no part of me that wants to ascend, by the way. And anyone who knows me knows this for me is all about descent. This is all about descending deep into the ancient divine blueprint that is the human consciousness, that we are the greatest technology in the multiverse, that there is not a need to go out. There is a need to come in to this greatest technology that is the human template.
I wholeheartedly agree. Does anybody else have any questions? I think we're, thanks, Lalita. We're getting some thank yous, Lalita. If there's no more questions, I am going to make a recommendation that you get your natal chart done with Lalita and go more into your own chart, your own experience of how you can move forward, and what you can bring forward to the collective, not only the collective, but for yourself. I know that it has helped me immensely. Lolita knows that. Thank you. How do we contact Lolita? Do you want to say all those things, Lolita?
Go to the website.
In the comments here.
galacticshamanastrologers.net. You can read the blogs there, and then you can send me an email there. And you can watch all of the Galactic Shaman Astrologers videos, because I don't work alone. I work with a team, just like Gloriana works with a team. They have great comments. It's not just me. It's that I work with a team, and that's part of the process that humanity is going to need to go through, is that my team and I always talk and chat and figure this together. And I am not a brilliant astrologer by myself. I am part of a group of people whose comments I value deeply. And I think that is the process that humanity is coming through right now, is that part of our sovereignty is also how to let every sovereign being participate in the conversation. None of us being the Messiah. That's the old age of Pisces. Each of us having a sovereign intelligence to offer.
Absolutely. Also, what we have also done in the past is you can get your chart read, and then if you need some help working on it energetically, you can then come to me and we can tune something very specific. But yeah, and also if you found this on Facebook, you can I linked Lalita's name, so you can go directly to her Facebook page, Lalita Astrology, and you can follow her there. I know I love it when she puts up the updates. All right. Well, I wish you all a beautiful journey through death and creativity. And Lalita, do you have any last words?
No, I am so grateful to you, Gloriana, who you are holding these codes tremendously, because Mars and Pluto are making the applying opposition to your natal Mars and Sun. So I am so grateful for the powerhouse that you are, girlfriend.
Thank you. Powerhouses here. All right, folks. I love you all so much. I bless you all. I thank Lalita from the bottom of my heart. And we're both here if you need any assistance on the journey. And aloha.
Aloha.
Bye, Lalita. Thank you.
Bye-bye, sweetie.
Aloha.